Hi, hello, welcome back to Moonbeaming. I am V excited for today's episode because it is a tarot deep dive. We're gonna nerd out all about the sevens in the tarot. Episodes like this thrill me because there is nowhere else that I can put all of the assorted knowledge of esoterica, the occult, very niche, very high level in a lot of ways. There's nowhere else I can put it than here. I can't put it in a book. No one's going to buy this from a course. It's too much to talk about in a newsletter. This is the place. This is it. And honestly, these kinds of really specialty tarot episodes, I think, are really important because I witness a lot of very 101, very kind of basic how-tos with the tarot. And that's great because everyone has to learn, and we learn with the basics, the basic building blocks, the 101s. And also, you can't really progress with tarot studies, in my humble opinion, without practicing, for sure, without reading for other people, if that's what you're going to be doing, without reading books, of course, and also without knowing a bit more about some of the intricacies in tarot that help us get a really deep understanding. And so that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to talk all about the energies and the meanings of the seven in tarot, the seven in the minor arcana, the seven in numerology. And this is because you all know, I'm sure you know if you're here, in the Gregorian calendar, we're in a 7-year. If you add up all the numbers in our year, in the Gregorian calendar, that is, you get 7. And as a lot of y'all know, I have a special interest in numerology. Numerology is really important in Kabbalistic studies, in the Kabbalah. It's a fascinating tool. It's a great way to hang with numbers for everyone who hates math. Waka waka, JK, but no, not JK. I'll take any positive relationship I can get with numbers. Okay, but seriously, let's get on to the topic of today. Digging into the numbers and understanding how they relate to our interpretations is such a good way to get a deep understanding of the whole system of tarot as well as the individual cards. When we do this, we can begin to understand that the tarot is very much interwoven like a tapestry with other systems due to it being disseminated around the world, due to there being these very sacred, very global, universal archetypes and experiences. We can see there being different philosophies, contexts, and belief systems of those cultures. It's a very rich, very deep portal and doorway into different ways of thinking, different belief systems, different folklore, mythology, and how we make sense of the world in mythopoetic ways, in psychological ways, in philosophical ways, and energetic ways. We see religion, we see different spiritual traditions. It's all there. I also really see, or for me, I should say, part of the magic of tarot is the historical, cultural, and anthropological correlations, the ways in which these archetypes and ideas and ways of being flow into different cultures, different schools of study, which is also how I think about astrology as being as much about what a particular culture at a particular time thinks about a certain subject as we do accepting the keywords and meanings of a planet or a sign merely at face value. So, for example, right now, if you're listening to this as it's come out, we're in Cancer season in the tropical zodiac. Some of the stereotypes of the sign of the moon are that it is emotional, and that is often seen as bad. But that is what is seen as bad, I'm putting this in quotes, bunny ears, in our culture. A newsflash is that everyone is emotional. Everyone has emotions. They might hide or repress them. They might try to ignore or avoid them. But our emotions are a major factor in how we interact with the world, and they also influence our behaviors so much more than we give emotions credit for. I always say, show me the shadow or the so-called negative aspect of an archetype or a sign or a planet or a tarot card, and I'll be able to tell you what the culture fears or hasn't been able to integrate successfully or deal with on the whole. And that brings me to, dun, 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 my next workshop. It's one I've wanted to teach for a minute. It's going to be fun for me. It'll be fun for you too. And that is called How to Feel Your Feelings. It's on July 13th, and we're going to have a nice, deep, splashy Cancerian feeling time. We're going to discuss some different views of what emotions are, of what feelings are, some ways to emotion map, ways to figure out the messages that emotions give us, and ways to be with, ways to feel our feelings. And you're going to get a nice little smorgasbord, a nice little buffet of how to feel your feelings. Did you know, gentle listener, I'm a Cancer sun? It's true. And what that means is I am emotionally literate. That's what it means. It is no shame if you are not emotionally literate. Feel free to send this to your dad. Feel free to send this to your brother. Feel free to send this to your boss. And also, feel free to click it and take it and join me, because we're going to be learning a lot. I think it'll help you be able to see your emotions and be with your emotions in a lighter way, in a more generative way, in a way that connects you more with yourself. I also have found, or have come across, have been surprised by how little people don't know how to feel their feelings. So they will avoid them, repress them, and then those feelings will grow, and maybe some behaviors we don't want will end up happening as a result. Feelings are super cool. Feelings are useful. Let's really flow through water season together. Okay? Okay. Sign up is you know where. The way that I teach the tarot minors so that one can really understand it, really live them, is through the meanings of the numbers and the elements together. They make like an equation together. Once you understand those two components, it doesn't matter what the image looks like. It doesn't matter if you feel stumped for a minute when you pull the card. By coming back to the element and the number of the minor arcana, you'll be able to get it. That's because the numbers ground us in a particular process. Each number signals a process or theme that is taking place when we pull the card, when we encounter that number. The tarot, you may or may not know, is about growth cycles and processes of change and transition and enlightenment and evolution. And a really great use of the tarot as a tool is the tarot's ability to contextualize where we are. The cards reflect that back to us because sometimes we forget, sometimes we need a reminder, or we don't know. We're literally WTFing out here, right? I mean, you know that a lot of people are WTFing out here, right? So we might be in a pruning phase, but really we want to burst forth and expand. And we pull a card and it reminds us, well, you know what? You probably have to do some pruning, probably have to do some clearing away before we can get what we want. And the cards can help us out in that way in terms of reflecting something we can't see, or, of course, reflecting back to us what we can't, right? It's a mirror, and it's such a great tool for intuition. And best case scenario, knowing the elemental correspondences and the energies of the numeral give us advice on what to do whenever possible. Tarot doesn't always tell us what to do, and especially in the sevens. If only it were that easy, right? But especially in certain numbers, certain cards, it won't tell us exactly what to do. Let's talk about why. We're going to be talking about why this whole episode. From a numerological perspective, the sevens, the number 7, is about spirituality and individuation. There is a ripening and a maturing that is happening in the 7. We see that amplified with the Chariot big time because we know that the Chariot is all about what we as the individual spirit, the individual flower, the individual soul wants, not what society or our family or our ego wants for us. That's also why there's a lot of conflict in the Chariot, right? Or in the sevens. There's that conflict between what we feel like other people want us to do or what we feel like other people want us to be, and what our spirit, what our soul, what our inner flame, what our inner child, who we really are is ready to be in this life. And that doesn't always feel peachy, right? Let's think about some of the correlations in our world with the number 7. 7 years are when cells turn over and transform. 7 is the number correlated with sabbaticals. Normally, I am a life path 7, and often there'll be big changes for me in 7-year increments. I can look back and locate that so-called 7-year itch. Like, okay, well, I've been doing this thing for 7 years. It's time to move on. I have matured. I have ripened. I've learned my lessons. I often will like to do things in 3s, and I like to do things in 7s personally. If you are feeling itchy, if you're ready to move on from a career, a relationship, a hairstyle, a course of interest, a way of doing certain things, a certain schedule, a set schedule, well, guess what? You are right on time in this 7-year. A really meta aspect of the 7, I learned tarot nights and weekends style for about 7 years-ish before I started reading for clients, before I started taking money to give readings. I learned all about intuition and psychic skills and metaphysics for those 7 years before I felt confident serving other people. And I read as a professional reader for about 7 years. And then I stopped doing one-on-ones. Why? For a very 7 reason. number one, I felt like I was done with it. I just felt like it was coming to a close. I felt matured. I felt ripened. I felt like I had become the best reader I could be. And I felt like ultimately I could serve more people by teaching them the tools. You know, I didn't want any of my clients dependent on me. I only want folks to be as empowered as possible. And taking a class with me, learning with me, whether it's a podcast here, which is free, or if you're supporting me through the Patreon, thank you very much, or a workshop that I teach, which is anywhere from $30 to the longer ones over $500. It's still cheaper than working with me over 2, 3, 4 sessions, which is usually what people would do, you know? So it just made sense. And in this day and age of 3 ways to make more money, learn the tarot in 31 seconds, micro this and no attention span that, the energy of the 7 is a gift. Listen, I'm in awe of folks who can break complex things down really quickly and succinctly. It's a major skill. It's great. It's definitely not what I'm here to do personally. And also, what works for one person isn't going to work for everyone. That's the thing. Like, I can't be like, here is what the 7 of Swords means for you, because you're so different. What you want and where you are is so different than someone else, than from me, right? It's our direct experiences with life from our own life force. When we are engaged with things we care about, when we are learning the lessons we're supposed to learn, when we are relating to people we are here to learn and grow with. This is the energy of the 7. It's about us digging in our, what do we do? Elbow grease, like pushing our sleeves up to our elbows, rolling up our sleeves. Thank you. That's it. And getting our hands dirty and trying and failing and trying, and then implementing or being able to synthesize what we've learned. That's what makes us teachers. Yes, I can read lots of books. Yes, I can take lots of classes. Sure. And also, it's really just me living, and it's really just you living and trying things that work and experimenting, and then being able to explain that to other people in a way that honors the complexity of life and honors other people's individuation, right? That make us such great teachers and such great students of life. Things of quality take time, including ourselves, right? Here's more 7. There are 7 days of the week, 7 chakras, 7 classical planets, the 7th being Saturn, which has 7-year cycles. The other planet associated with 7-year cycles is Uranus. So we have planet of change, then we have planet of maturation. There are 7 octaves, 7 colors in a rainbow. 7 is a number of completion, wholeness, integration. Those, I should say, are the main processes happening when you pull a 7. Something is happening to create a deeper level of maturity for you, not for the world, not in a worldly way always, sometimes, not always. What I mean is, I just want to really be clear about what I mean. 7 doesn't correlate necessarily to milestones societally, such as having a kid or graduating from a program. Of course, it could. But those are more societal shoulds kind of things, more worldly, more acceptable markers. Often, when we're in a 7 phase, we are being asked to mature in a way that is distinct for us, unique to us, and in a way that also doesn't often bear praise or even understanding from other people. Like turning down a job that looks great, but you realize will just give you more of the same or constrict your identity, or beginning to truly communicate your boundaries while also not alienating those you love, right? That's a major point of maturation, being able to be clear about your needs while also not isolating people you're intimate with and who you love. That is major. It's major, but there's no card you can pick up at the CVS for that. Like, wow, great job. You spoke your needs and your housemate still loves you. Like, huzzah. There's no card, there's no societal made ritual for this major turning point. So it's often quieter. It often feels difficult. It's often like a difficult, deeper process that isn't always even easily explained. Like just choosing to do more of what you love. Pursue a career and a vocation you never thought you were allowed to do. Turning down more showy, important obligations that our society looks to as being important, like being on boards or getting some fancy certification, like turning those down in order to say, spend more time with your family or cook more or volunteer more. It also doesn't always look linear, the choices or decisions we make in a 7 process. In fact, it often can look like a choice made that came out of nowhere, that is linked to some deep personal longing, something you wanted to do for a long time. When we enter 7 territory, we generally are ready to up level in some way, but it's usually painful because first we're being asked to let go of something, and that's often ancestral. It's a habit like overwork or a distraction that kept us complacent or comfortable, or a pattern. There's often an ancestral line being drawn in the sand, such as, well, my parents did this and their parents did this, but I'm not going to do this anymore because it's not right for me. It's not serving me. I'm not going to drink, or I'm not going to give up my entire career for a partner. This is why it can feel so painful, because it's freedom and it's a liberation, but it often goes against programming that is maybe lifetimes old. In one of our recent energy sessions over on the Patreon, I was talking about energy, and I was talking about bids for connection, and about how our nervous systems and our attachment styles, really the ways we're socialized, it's either to override or avoid. So either we'll override bids for connection, we'll override our needs or our exhaustion or our intuition, our nature, right? We'll override it because we've been taught that our nature or our intuition or our needs or our exhaustion are scary, are unwanted, are maybe not available, or we'll simply avoid those bids for connection altogether. Avoidance can look like ignoring, can look like numbing out, can look like defensiveness, or it could look like delaying, right? Avoidance looks like delaying the bid for connection, the thing you'd like to do, the classic, when I'm ... then I'll ... When I'm a different person, I'll book that call, start that savings account, get started on that idea. I'll do it tomorrow. or next week or, anytime but now. And when you get a 7, it's time to deal directly with that bid for connection. Look around at your life. What are you avoiding? What are you overriding? What bids for connection want to be made? How can you confront, look at them, hold space for them directly? How can you interact with certain aspects of your life, certain patterns, certain habits, certain things that are showing up in a way where you can glean self-knowledge, self-acceptance, wisdom that will help you move forward? Yes, maybe again, like you might be more alone for a while, but also eventually you might be more whole. The 7 in the minor arcana often asks us to confront something painful, even our own bullshit, in order to get to the next level of the video game of our life. Yes, it's an up level. I promise you, it's an up level. And up levels require honesty and authenticity. So first, we're asked to take a good hard look at where we are, where we've been planted, and whether or not it still feels good or resonant. For me, another personal share, I'm confronting the fact that a lot of the dreams I had about 7 years ago, really, it was about a decade, but 7 years in, a lot of them came true. And now I have new dreams. And some of those old dreams were too small. And some of those old dreams, getting some of those old dreams really banged me up, like really forced me to mature and really, there's some scars, right? And some of those dreams, I'm realizing, as I'm sure you are too, were really just mimetic desire. They were about what I thought I wanted because other people had them or other people told me I should have them. Or they were about survival. A lot of them were just simply about survival. And now those dreams are changing because I have changed in part through achieving some successes that I had wanted to achieve. That's how it goes, beneath this mask, another mask, at that mountain, different mountain, and so on and so forth. Evolution just keeps evolutioning, Life just keeps lifing. Time keeps on ticking. That is what we're doing in the 7s. 7s are a reality check. And that reality check can look all kinds of ways. It can be, as I just said, about the reality check that happens when you have become a different person as a result of having some of your dreams come true. It can be about the reality check that happens when you achieve something and it feels different than you thought it would, or maybe it even feels not good. It's about processing the lessons that we get only by doing the work, putting in the time, and trying. It's very vulnerable to try, to invest in ourselves and our values. It's very confronting to others also around us, right? When we're becoming more of ourselves. Another aside with the 7 is getting that reality check and realizing what we're really going to need that keeps us happy. Like a big one for me has always been, this is very 7 of me. A big one for me has been the hollowness that often accompanies, for example, like numbers. In our world, we're very focused on, or in the world, I suppose, we're very focused on numbers, and numbers are great. What I mean is like, I have, 20,000 followers, or this podcast has 1 million downloads. And here's the thing. They're great because each number is a person, and each number is a person's attention. And I don't think anyone takes that for granted. However, and I think you know what I am going to say, numbers can feel hollow if, for example, all you're trying to do is get that number. If that's it, there's always going to be another number. There's always going to be that hamster wheel to chase. And when you are in a 7 time period, you're really understanding what's most important to you, not the external trappings, not the ego, not what you think you should want or what should make you happy because it makes everyone happy, but what you actually really want, what you were really trying to go for, that maybe you ignored. Maybe you didn't even think about what you actually really wanted. Maybe you thought that symbol of the number or the trophy or the, I don't know, wedding ring or whatever other thing, other promise of XYZ you would get would then make you okay, would make you belong, would make you important, would keep you safe, whatever that is. A very 7 experience is that moment when you're like, oh, fork, like this isn't actually making me happy. I thought getting this thing would fulfill me, make me feel whole. And the ask of the 7, the maturity, energy, and frequency of the 7 is what is going to fulfill you and make you content on a much deeper, vaster, expansive, core, heart-centered, internal level. And that is some brave, honest work. When you get a 7, you can ask yourself, what am I ready to pause? What am I ready to stop? What do I want to continue? What do I want to try? And then really be brave enough and disciplined enough to implement new things in your life. So if the fives in the tarot, are about hard moments, challenging times, those lower points of life, those ebbs, or even sometimes some small or large rock bottoms, if you will, then the 7s are about impossible times that result in certain quantum leaps. There is that paradoxical nature to the 7s. Things look really good. Why do I feel really bad? It's strange, but my intuition is telling me that I should do something totally unrelated to my problem, like going for a walk, and maybe that'll help me figure out an issue I'm having at work. That kind of thing. There's a weirdness, like an oddness, a tension in the 7. There's a red herring quality to the 7 that we have to be careful about. We might go on a wild goose chase when truly we just have to sit our sweet, sweet, cute bottom down. There's a trickiness sometimes that happens with this card where you think it's like this, but really it's like this. Or either there's a solution being right under our nose, but somehow we can't see it, or we're being led astray somewhere else. Or there's a relationship. There's some kind of dishonesty. Or maybe we're the ones who are being dishonest about something, lying to ourselves and or others, avoiding that hard conversation or going along with something when we aren't totally on board with it. It's super useful when we pull a 7 to pause and see where we are trading temporary comfort for long-term discomfort, and where we can trade momentary discomfort for long-term sustainability or a win. When we're in a 7, we talked about it feeling heavy, talked about it feeling weird, we talked about it feeling paradoxical. It can feel ambiguous. A lot of the depictions of the 7 minors in a lot of decks appear ambiguous. Often I'll hear from folks pulling a minor 7, like, what the hell does this mean? I don't get it. This makes no sense. It's definitely the not now or try again later 8-ball of the tarot, right? You can see that, right? And so, of course, this isn't rocket science. The 7s want us to accept ambiguity, want us to be okay with being in the murkiness or the muck, because we have to make the decision. We have to make the decision, not the world around us. We have to go within. Like we're not going to get the answer usually by looking around and having the answer jump out for us from behind a bush, right? Because, like I said, at the very beginning of this year, when I was going over the themes of the year, ambivalence is part of being human. Paradox and lack of resolution, it's a common part of life, whether we like it or not. We're the ones who have to decide using our intuition. We're the ones who must change and do something different. Look internally instead of external. If you're an overthinker, for the love of the goddess, stop if you get a 7 and do something, right? If you're a doer and you're Little Miss Productive and Little Miss Go, Go, Go and Little Miss Hustle, sit your super cute bottom down for a little bit longer than feels comfortable to try to figure out the solution, right? This is about staying in our integrity instead of doing the easy thing. 7s are the crossroads, and it is the crossroads energy where endings and beginnings are taking place simultaneously. It could look really quiet from the outside perspective, but there's a ton of inner work being done. It could look like crickets, but you're planning the next 6 months of your life. You're growing a baby inside of you, or trying to get pregnant, or trying to do something challenging, or doing a new therapy modality, or writing in your journal and really getting to know yourself and who you are now, right? Or it could be that you're wrapping up one phase while beginning another, because life doesn't work life isn't linear. I talked about the 7s not being linear. Could be that you're working one job and then trying to start another job as well, on the side or something like that. Those kinds of processes are very much 7 energy. And of course, I think I talked about this before, but I really do want to underscore, this is often about ending older patterns. And we're often in the 7s being asked, like, you can go this way or stay the same. For example, are we going to read the comments again, even though we know it makes us not feel good? Are we going to keep complaining about the same things, stay habituated? Or are we going to do something differently? Are we going to be brave? Take our anxieties and put them in the back seat and drive. Think about the Chariot, right? That's a key message of this card that rules the 7s. And in the 7s, we're usually learning a particular lesson for the last time. That's why it feels so heavy. That's maybe why we don't want to end something, because we have that feeling of finality in the 7s. Sometimes I teach the tarot as a lunar cycle. Sometimes I teach the ace minor arcana being the new moon, and the full moon, the middle part of the cycle, being the 5, 6, or the 7. So the 7 is that part. You know, when a full moon happens and you feel really emotional, or you feel super wired, or you're feeling very buzzy and you can't quite understand why? It's almost like your senses, your body has gone into overload, but you haven't quite been able to understand why or what's coming up for you. The 7 is normally like a day or two after a full moon where you understand what was happening, what that release was about, or why you were cranky, or what that reflection or weird dream was going on. It's the time where we can implement it. Or it's that quality of a full moon that is the moon as mirror. When we do see the internal being reflected externally and our mind is sort of blown and we know what we have to do about it. We're normally learning how we process, how we move forward, who we are. That's also why there's that theme of victory. It feels like a growing up, a victory with a dash of sorrow sprinkled in there, because as James Baldwin says, love is a growing up. Anything that is worth doing is usually uncomfortable. It's usually hard and usually results in us loving ourselves and the world around us a lot more. So, I think you've got a good sense now of the 7, why it's here, what it wants to teach us, what we can do with it, what it is for. The 7 wants to teach us that it's okay to be ourselves, for ourselves. It wants to remind us that it's time to be ourselves in our wholeness. And that often we have to take aligned action, make a decision, step out of that center of the crossroads and onto another road in order to do that. We have to do things in a different way, and we usually have to let go of something. Maybe even something we don't want to, but we know that we have to. The 7s want us to do the right thing, not the easy thing. The 7s want us to decide what we really want for us, for our spark, for our spirit, not a decision made out of settling or out of what we don't want. In the 5s, we're going through it. We are in it, right? It's tough. The 5s are really tough. Stuff is coming out. We are dealing, we're in the thick of it. We're in the forest. We can't always see the trees. In the 6s, there's a rebalancing. We've resolved something. The dust has cleared. The fog has lifted. We've moved on. We've reached a point of equilibrium. And also in the 6s, sometimes, but not always, we're doing something to solve a problem that was created in the 5s, right? We're figuring out a resolution that's often linked to all the stuff that came up in the 5s. And so because of that, that homeostasis might also be a reaction too, right? We've all been there. Maybe it's like you got a job because you needed to pay rent, and so you took the first one. It solved your problem, but maybe it wasn't ultimately the one, right? It was because you had to do it. We all have to do things that we don't want to solve a problem or to survive. And now In the sevens, you're being asked, okay, well, what do I really want? Not what I think I want, not something that will be a reaction to something, not what my ego wants, not a decision that is easy, not something I've done before, right? It's not about doing something you think you should in order to get a certain result where you'll know what is going to happen, where you know what is going to be familiar. That's not what the 7 is about. Stop looking around and trying to solve your problem or feed your spirit or feed your soul with someone else's solution. It reminds me, it just came into my mind. This is so silly, but I don't care. Everyone and their mother always says, get a membership, do a membership. You run a biz, membership. And gentle everyone, it's not for me. Would it be an easier way for me to run my business? Yes. Do I deeply enjoy gathering with folks? I do. Anyone who comes to one of my workshops or does my longer courses or is in the Patreon, you know, I love you. I love you. You're amazing. And also a membership, an ongoing thing with programming, it's not for me. It's not what I want to do. And a lot of times we do these things, y'all, because someone else tells us it's what we should be doing. And we don't check in to see what the components are truly, that reality check, right? We don't often do that. We'll just say, oh yeah, that's easy. Or, oh yeah, this is the guidebook that someone else has given me. That makes sense, without checking in about who we are, how we want to be spending our time, what makes sense for us, what feels good, what is in alignment with our nature, and so on and so forth. And listen, if you don't know what you want, if you want something different for yourself than what I want, a membership's great. I'm not saying memberships are bad. I think they're great. I've thought about joining 97 million of them. If you don't really know who you are, maybe following a playbook like the 1, 2, 3 steps to a better you or whatever that might be, I think that's great. The 7s, however, like me, a 7, or like you being in a 7 year or pulling a 7 card, 7 being the year we're in, it's a great time to interrogate the patterns of your life. Think about who you are, not your conditioning, not your trauma, not your fear, not your ego, not what you think would be easiest or most likely to make your family proud or keep you safe. Maybe it's time to think about what you need, what you want your days to look like, who you are, who you want to be, what you want to experience in your life. That's a lesson. That is a growth edge. And that is a challenge and a homecoming and a becoming just for you and you alone. So a few questions to ask yourself now in this 7 year, anytime you pull a 7 and are like, what the fork is this ambiguity? Here are 7 questions. If money, time, effort were no object, what are the things I would most want to be doing? Number 2, what lessons is life currently trying to teach me? And what actions must I take so that the lessons that keep reappearing in my life that I don't want will be resolved or integrated? What are the greater ancestral or epigenetic patterns that are coming into play now that I am ready to step away from, heal, integrate, or address? 4, kind of on the same question line. What would be healing to my ancestral line and within my personal integrity. 5, what would be a great personal victory? Like something just for you to enjoy. Like, what are the things you want to say you have done before you left this lifetime? You know? Start writing that list. Write at least 7 down. See how you can start doing those things. 6, who am I now? Who do I want to be moving forward? And 7, where am I ready to do something uncomfortable or release something so that I might level up spiritually and materially? Okay, loves. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you at the workshop soon, soon, soon. If you love these tarot nerd outs, let me know. Please join the Patreon if that's your jam, or listen to the other tarot episodes. There's now episodes on the 4s, the 5s, the 6s. Now we're doing the 7s. You can scroll back and look at them. You can scroll back and listen to them. This is a podcast. You're not looking at them. If you're really into tarot, then that's where you're going to find some deep dives on these beautiful archetypes. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time, your attention. I'm sending you so much love. Be good to you. Be good to one another. I'll be back next week with an episode all about the 7 of Cups. Bye for now.